Hello, I am the Deer Runner, and in this analysis video, I'll be continuing my analysis of Season 4 and the strange level of bad luck people seem to be having in the early parts of it. At this early part of Season 4, the characters should have been much more worried than they were. They still did not know where the quirks came from, but in such a short period of time, almost every angle attack they could have done to destabilize their strange incredible powers was done. Starting with the most world-upending event, the showdown between Almight and All For One, which drastically changed the world order by removing the symbol of peace and revealing to the world the power of All For One. Which, since quirks are often affected by mental distress, a worldwide destabilization of quirks occurred, as this event was broadcasted to the entire world and easily got everyone's attention. Having all the world's focus was on the country of Japan, where it all occurred. But at this point in the story, it was revealed the quirks were under far more stress in Japan, by an unimaginable, abhorrent level of experimentation on quirks, creating quirk-evolving and quirk-de-evolving drugs, which was spread throughout Japan as samples to would-be buyers around the time the showdown between All For One and One For All occurred. If there was any point in time that quirks could be destabilized enough to cause a major reaction, it would have happened then. Which during that period of time, the hidden stories I've been analyzing suddenly showed signs of unheard of manipulation, and warning signs that something is there that wasn't there before. As it seemed every major operation suddenly was set down individualized paths of destruction, despite there should be no way anything could have hit them all at once. Even a scanning quirk that has double the power of Deku's top-tier scanning quirk should have not been able to pull off such an attack. But now in this video, we see it won't stop with how an entirely different set of operations are about to face the same level of destruction, around the same time. Despite those operations were spread out, powerful, and secretive, which should have made it impossible to hit them all at once. This will leave us with strong behavioral symptoms of something being there by the end of this video. Which behavioral symptoms are observations that reveal something had to have caused what was observed, but the cause wasn't identified. Which is how the show has no coincidences, and now it's such a major one occurred, we can as always assume something was orchestrating the disasters. Which this video will complete the transition into the secret containment arc of the My Hero Academia series, that shows us the new hidden threats that have arrived. This will contain spoilers for the My Hero Academia series. This is your final spoiler warning. We now start at when Deku is looking for an internship to join.
The next big thing I'm aiming for is to participate in a hero work-study program where I'll get the chance to serve under an actual pro at their agency.
During this, there isn't really any manipulation of Deku's original quirk. First off, the goals weren't at all in scanning range due to the distance the hero groups were from Deku. So Deku just went to people he knows that are in high positions to try to negotiate his way into good internships.
Will you be taking anyone for the program, Gran Torino?
Sorry, kid. I'm working on something else right now, so I can't help you out.
Eventually, Gran Torino placed Deku in a top tier 1 Night-Eye agency.
You know that Almight can introduce you to a bunch of new people, right, kid? First one who comes to mind is his former sidekick. His name's Night-Eye.
Which wasn't a coincidence, as revealed in the last video, it is Gran Torino's job to contain anomalies, such as a one-for-all wielders, so would make such important decisions on Deku's behalf, while secretly, no one was able to oppose Gran Torino.
You sent Midoriya to me in the hopes that he would help mend my relationship with All Might.
So the kid, what are your honest thoughts about him?
Which if they tried to interfere, they would be dealt with. Under those conditions, Deku was sent to the Night-Eye agency, which was led by the former sidekick of All Might and was heavily involved in secret operations, as revealed through them being the main public-facing operation to secure Eri from the last video, allowing the real leaders of that operation to remain hidden as they simply give the Night-Eye agency orders. Which that operation was to secure a child that they found has world-altering powers, being experimented on by villains to weaponize her powers. Which this Night-Eye internship was originally intended to be Deku's main introduction to the planned for future of the symbol of peace, that follows the secret operations orders. Deku went there for an evaluation to be let in, which Night-Eye decided to put Deku through a test. To snatch the stamp that be Night-Eye's signature, then stamp the contract making Deku become part of the internship officially within 3 minutes.
It's time to show me what you would bring to the table, using actions, not words. You have 3 minutes to try and take this seal from me. If you want to work as a hero under my guidance, then stamp that contract yourself.
Which was a lie, as Night-Eye wouldn't have the authority to resist Gran Torino's orders, so regardless of the outcome, Deku was going to join.
I told you to take the seal from me and stamp the contract yourself, but I didn't say you'd be rejected if you failed.
During this event, Night-Eye used his powers to see ahead in the future of Deku, but due to the social phobia without Deku knowing about the threat. Deku's original quirk didn't have Deku defend himself, but this was far more complicated than just letting a quirk power hit Deku. The scanning from Deku's original quirk had been able to, so far as we know, fully understand every quirk around Deku, except One for All and All for One, and probably others, certain hidden by their nature quirks that lack clearly extreme types of powers compared to everything else. But all quirks had at least been able to be partially scanned. So we should expect for Deku's original quirk to have gotten data from Night-Eye's quirk peering into the future, as no quirk has been completely immune to the scanning so far. Though Deku did fail that test, the result doesn't just prove Deku could scan that time quirk, as yet again, Deku came at it in a way that put his original scanning quirk heavily at a disadvantage. Deku desired not to destroy the collectible Almight merchandise all over the room, which had Deku perform an insane level of acrobatics far exceeding his ability, as he used full cowling jumping around the room at high speeds, while not hitting the merchandise. That was done through physical manipulation and scanning to have Deku be able to pull off such an insane feat that he had no way of doing otherwise. But that restriction gravely disrupted Deku's ability to move, drastically reducing the number of angles Deku could go at Night-Eye at all times, making Deku far more predictable even with the potential advantage of knowing Night-Eye's future moves. Plus, since Night-Eye was extremely skilled and fast, that alone can have potentially been overwhelming, such as demonstrated before with Gran Torino, which Gran Torino was easily able to for hours keep Deku at bay from even touching him despite Deku's incredible abilities. Which all could explain if Deku's original quirk used future data, why it didn't win, and also since there were a lot of happening in such a high-speed intense battle, Night-Eye may not have noticed what Deku was doing had some differences in what the time power showed. There was also a possibility the social phobia issue may have activated by Deku's original quirk if scans figured out Night-Eye would be alarmed if the timeline changed, and Deku's original quirk may have attempted to set up a trap using similar movements, but going at a different pace to get the seal from Night-Eye. But we can't really know for sure, as with the high pace of the battle and the skill of Night-Eye, he may have not been able to keep track of the details while keeping Deku at bay, with his incredible skills. But with the end result being similar enough between both timelines, would have Night-Eye have a hard time realizing there were discrepancies, if there were any. So with such an inconclusive result, we'll have to look for other events to see if Deku's original quirk can scan Night-Eye's quirk. Due to the fact I need to show the future consequences of the decisions, I'm going to say what the answer is. The scanning of the time quirk completely worked, flawlessly, as later on Deku will be in scanning range of Night-Eye when he looks into the future. Then that future Night-Eye saw will be changed, turning Deku's defeat against Overhaul into a victory. Which in that future video, it will be shown Deku's original quirk fully utilized all information from Night-Eye's quirk to pull off that victory. Now there's a major issue from this situation. Testing to see if Deku's original quirk can scan Night-Eye's time viewing power was very important, especially with how sociopathic and unstable Deku's original quirk has been known to be with the data it gets, which is due to it is alive through a multi-personality using a small section of Deku's brain that Deku doesn't have access to, with such a small amount of brain parts being what it lives through, causes severe issues with its logic and mental stability that makes it dangerous. But instead of a proper test happening, they didn't tell Night-Eye of Deku's original quirk, as the higher-ups were far too cautious, micromanaging the operation in an attempt to keep Deku's original scanning quirk exploitable weaknesses hidden by hiding its existence from everyone. Which was mainly the freezing weakness, as like a computer, this quirk will freeze if it suddenly has to scrap a plan, then form a new one, but at the same time, as a computer does, it doesn't change what it is doing to Deku during it, having Deku completely unable to address threats around him for a few seconds, periods of time, even if he could see the new threat coming, which could be fatal. And also, Night Eye made the test completely unfair due to his anger. Night Eye chose to endanger all that valuable merchandise of Almight so that he could say the new symbol of peace is trampling all over Almight's legacy. As Night Eye wants his protege, Lemillion, to be the one-for-all wielder.
All Might chose wrong after all. Mirio should have inherited the power. But I don't understand why he chose you. How can you succeed him?
But if Night Eye performed the test in an area without the merchandise, Night Eye seeing the future of Deku failing, then living through the timeline where Deku succeeds at stamping the contract, would have exposed this threat in a safe, contained manner. As Night Eye would easily keep this matter private by calmly not openly addressing it and then get briefed on Deku's original scanning quirk. Having enough time to create a proper plan and may have been able to have Night Eye reveal to Deku he has a scanning quirk due to the sheer value of a combo where the future can be seen, then the higher-ups would tell Deku how specifically attempts to correct the timeline should be done, guiding the unstable Deku's original scanning quirk along proper plans. Which that would have been a wonderful outcome, as the ones trying to hide the scanning quirk doesn't realize the consequences are quickly outpacing the benefits of keeping it a secret. As revolutionary assassins that know scanning quirk weaknesses are coming for Deku, and they have already attempted to kill Deku before, leaving him physically disfigured, and are currently secretly wrecking his resources to try to corner Deku so they can kill him, as shown in episode 11 for the assassination attempt, and as episode 13 for sabotaging Deku's resources in UA High. While a Night Eye agency would have been a perfect environment to safely train Deku in the use of his scanning quirk, as to be away from everyone so they wouldn't catch on, while also in a top tier by resources wide area, especially with how classified the existence of Deku's original quirk is. It is clear such a training was critical for the future success, as a psychotic state of Deku's original quirk would have abused future information if it gained too much of it. Also, Deku even making it through the normal story possibility was unlikely, with such effective plans to try and destroy one for all that won't stop till they win. But a controlled usage of this time combo could have been heavily beneficial and would have probably tipped the battle completely into Hero's side favor by a lot. So this was a very serious missed opportunity to get ahead of that problem, and a drastic loss of incredible valuable resources. Though for now this issue is self-contained, as Night Eye refuses to use his quirk voluntarily for far from the future events, as he found he can't change anything he sees, therefore doesn't want to lock in the death of a person he cares about.
Why do you fear it, seeing things farther into the future?
Because what I see cannot be changed. I've tested many times. The timeline always writes itself, as if the accounts are being balanced somehow.
But unfortunately, in a not-too-distant future, Night Eye will have nothing to lose on his deathbed, and peers far into the future when Deku is nearby, letting Deku's original quirk gain an entire lifetime of future information focused on from the perspective of the hero Lemillion, which with this problem being undetected for far too long would end up causing disasters, leading to that happy ending timeline being devoured for short-term desires of Deku, being fulfilled by Deku's now monstrous original scanning quirk, as it doesn't understand the real reasons why events ended the way they did, which is due to the described by Night Eye his power does not give him much details on what led up to these events shown. So Deku's original quirk will, without knowing the details, remove important steps that were needed to have been taken to build to the good ending, quickly upending the entire situation while trying to help Deku complete his short-term desires, while no understanding of what he wants is different than what he needs. As Deku's original quirk performs its normal action of fulfilling Deku's desires with the information it can gather, which this time, it had too much, leaving Deku in an even harder scenario in a far worse state, which with the timeline broken to such a high degree, it also would not have any intel for the time power, as Deku lives through events that weren't supposed to occur, without the resources he was supposed to have, as a lot of it already was sacrificed for short-term nearsighted desires that were pursued by Deku's original quirk. Basically, this was the most harmful event for Deku's future of being the symbol of peace, which he infected Deku's actions quickly starts destroying his life with no sign the higher-ups knew Deku needed treatment, allowing the untreated new symbol of peace to succumb to the infection. It looks accidental according to the hidden stories, but this is now added to the quickly growing massive list of major operation failures being set into motion around this period of time, which means it probably somehow wasn't an accident. After this hidden story dark outcome that would devastate the symbol of peace, Operation's future, though Deku failed Night Eye's test, Night Eye still accepted Deku as per Gran Torino's orders. But Night Eye told Deku he is accepting him to prove he is unworthy, and should give one for all to Lemillion, which means Deku's desires to prove Night Eye wrong just activated Deku's original quirk, which it will look for any way to force an outcome to have Night Eye accept Deku as the next symbol of peace. After this, eventually Deku went back to the Night Eye agency and had a run-in with Eri during a patrol. Now this was due to the Night Eye making Deku desire to prove he is worthy of being the symbol of peace. So with the intel Deku received on the current target, Overhaul, and its Yakuza criminal group, Deku's original quirk would be scanning for them to look for opportunities that could make Deku seem amazing, by effectively attacking their investigative target, which the scans detected Overhaul directly while noticing the screwed up situation with the child Eri, who had clear scannable physical signs of experimentation underneath her many bandages, trying to run away from Overhaul, plus the amazing amount of power within Eri that would explain why she was being experimented on, was completely scanned for as well. Since Deku ended up coincidentally meeting them, this was clearly not an accident, but instead, Deku's original quirk was hunting them for a plan to impress Night Eye. Now we are going to try to study the situation to figure out what was Deku's original quirk plan. First, as Eri ran out from the alley into the streets, Deku's original quirk, who was tracking Eri, made sure Deku would have been blocking her escape route so Deku can secure her. Which we can see this happening by Deku stopping to talk to Lemillion while trying to make it look like a normal conversation. While in actuality, it was trying to keep Deku close to Eri's current location and slow down the group with that conversation to corner Eri, which has been a common tactic such as the Community Ward incident. Final part of their approach to the villain base was timed to coincide with the hero's arrival, to have the villain's security be destroyed by the arriving heroes. As the villains obviously saw Deku's group getting too close to that had-to-be monitored window someone could see the Nomu's through, which it went as perfectly as possible. Just as Eri would exit into the streets, Deku's original quirk timed Deku's movements through physical manipulation and secretly manipulating the pace of his own group's movement to walk right in front of Eri, giving Eri no time to react, having Eri collide with Deku, which Deku was forced to quickly get positive control over Eri, having her in Deku's arms, which would anchor all participants to the battlefield location. Otherwise, it'd be a little weird a stranger decided to just hold on to some random child, but strategically it was a critical move, so mentally manipulate Deku did not see the issues. Deku's original quirk also had other strategies to cover the other potential outcomes, such as it would make Deku notice the distress of the scared child running into the streets from the alley, or notice something that gets Deku's attention to head into the alley, if Eri wasn't able to get out of the alley on her own. Also, we can see the alley looks endless with no light at the other side, so Eri knew she had to exit on the side she'd be closest to, as there'd be no way she'd reach the other end or she'd be caught, allowing Deku's original quirk to just patrol on one side of the road, having a clear view of every exit Eri could have used to escape the alley at all times. Regardless of the potential outcomes, Eri was not getting away, as Deku's original quirk was ready for any outcome to set up the ambush to rescue Eri. Due to the fact the quirk would have scanned ahead for danger, for it to have forced the conflict in his location means it was confident it can win due to the hidden advantages. Which within this unknown trap, Overhaul tried to defuse the situation, stating Eri should go back with him and stating he is her father, which was a lie that on the surface seemed convincing at first.
I hope you'll forgive my daughter, Hero. I don't know what to do with her.
Chisaki from Shiei Saikai, the man Night Eye is after!
Which at this point, Lemillion knew he had orders to not spook Overhaul, the investigative target, so tried to leave the situation quickly with Deku.
Speaking of which, we need to finish patrolling this division by lunch. Come on, let's go.
Which Deku's original quirk had no intention to let that happen, so as soon as Lemillion tried to force Deku to leave by ordering him to, Deku's original quirk would try to counter by having Deku notice and then mention all the signs of child abuse. But before Deku could be forced to do that, Eri, seeing the warning signs of being abandoned, and called out for help prior to Deku's original quirk being able to react.
Please don't go.
But at this point, Deku's original quirk already had an active plan, so it forced Deku to notice and mention all the warning signs of the abuse anyway.
Your daughter seems scared. This girl, she's grabbed me and won't let go. She's got bandages all over. Her whole body's shaking, but she's not making a sound. Does that seem like it's normal to you?
Which just made it so they can't just leave. At this point, Lemillion noticed all the signs Deku pointed out, and it was obvious to everyone any hero would not be allowed to ignore this.
Togeda wants us to leave, but that would only make him more suspicious. What hero would abandon a frightened child?
So for the mission to succeed of gathering intel on Overhaul's group, they needed to continue interaction, or it would look suspicious. At this point, Overhaul asked to speak about this in private setting of the alley they were in front of.
This situation is embarrassing, so I'd prefer to discuss it where we won't be overheard.
Which Lemillion was not sure what to do, which then he looked at Deku, which Deku specifically nodded at him, silently saying he agreed. This meant that the alley was specifically the area Deku's original quirk wanted them to fight in, or Deku would not have done that. Therefore, there are extreme advantages in the environment of an alley, while the out in the open area of the streets was a potential death trap. Which, since the alleys were everywhere where Eri was allowed to move through freely by Deku's original quirk, with there also being plans to get to Eri if she couldn't make it out of the alley, that has to have been the target environment to start the battle in. I'm now going to list all the advantages I found in that alley environment. First, it is clear Deku's original quirk didn't care where in the alley the battle happened, as it was allowing Eri to just run through it, so that greatly simplifies the amount of questions not needing to care about what specifically was in the surrounding buildings, so we can now focus on the general structures of an alley environment advantages. So first advantage, though Overhaul has quirk suppressing bullets, his allies can fire at them, the alley would make those shots very long shots with limited angles of attack, plus ample shockwaves and debris concentrated by the narrow passages of the alley, which would have created hurricane-force winds and debris pouring out of the alley if a battle happened, making the bullets useless, which Deku's original quirk would easily time Deku's attacks to deflect the bullets. I don't think the bullets can be redirected to hit Overhaul by the speed they'd be going at, and the complicated reaction of the explosive charge attached to the gun mechanism would be too much to time perfectly, but at least it'd be able to put a defense to harmlessly deflect them away just before they are fired. But if the hero team stayed in the open outside the alley, they would have been exposed to the bullets from all types of angles and easily get taken down, as the shockwaves wouldn't be concentrated by the alley to hit the bullets all at once. Which was probably not something that they could survive if their enemies brought enough bullets. Having Lemillion caught off guard and Deku, who was shown to can't handle projectiles if you fire too many too quickly at him, as seen in the licensing exam, which in that event Deku's original quirk didn't allow Deku to attack the many minions directly unless they can't effectively concentrate the fire of the glue shooters at Deku. So this was heroes unknowingly being forced to take cover from the quirk suppressing bullets. Next advantage, though the power of Overhaul to turn solid stone into spikes would seem dangerous in a small enclosed space, this may not have been the case, as in the future he was using a limitless supply of stone with top-of-the-line quirk enhancements. But in the alley, the stones they were around were shallow, and so Overhaul was at the normal power level. The cement in buildings' walls not having much material meant a simple shockwave from a one-fall attack could easily remove the stone Overhaul could use, especially as he uses them, sticking them out into the shockwave path, which would have them instantly get blasted out of the alley with the shockwaves from the battle. And with the small amount that was available, Overhaul would quickly run out. Plus, it will be shown in the future, heavily altering the rocks can disrupt Overhaul's quick ability to use them. As shown when Deku had broken up stones, the spike attacks Overhaul gave out dissipated quickly as the power moved through the recently broken up rocks, which the thin stone layers would be heavily affected by Deku's one-for-all attacks, shockwaves, so would suppress Overhaul's ability to use them throughout a significant part of the battle. Deku's original quirk obviously would be waiting for the opportunity, having a shockwave attack ready to go on standby for if Overhaul used that attack on them. Also trying to make spikes from the building walls would expose the hallways of the building, allowing Deku to make a clean escape with Eri, which is scanning physical manipulation and mental manipulation would have Deku instantly flee with Eri when an escape route is opened. The third advantage, Lemillion has been shown in the future to be immune to Overhaul's body reorganization attacks that make people explode, so would be the one beating him around, as Lemillion simply have his body parts that would be hit by the attack go out of phase while he uses the rest of his untargeted body parts to land attacks against Overhaul. effectively making the battle completely one-sided. While Deku, who has no such immunities, would be holding the child, therefore obviously be forced to keep his distance. So a perfect formation was created to maximize a two-man hero group effectiveness in combat. While Deku uses the shockwaves from his attacks to counter most of Overhaul's Yakuza group's options from a safe distance, allowing Lemillion to just focus on defeating Overhaul without issues. Which also made it that Deku would easily escape with Eri, as Overhaul wouldn't be able to reach Deku due to Lemillion. Plus, Overhaul probably wouldn't win, as Lemillion was just that powerful and a perfect counter to Overhaul's abilities, so no chance of Deku escape being blocked. Then it would be a game of scanning for the massive pursuit and heading to a secure area for an epic showdown, with Deku being the star while Lemillion gets left behind early on as the villains quickly leave him to try to pursue Eri. While Lemillion would lose sight of the main force while facing so many opponents getting left behind, having Deku become the star of the epic battle, which would get Deku the respect of Night Eye, fulfilling Deku's desires, so would be why the plan was formed. Especially with securing such a world-altering power that Eri has. Deku also would have probably fled to UA High due to the need for an effective fortress, as anywhere else would have probably been overrun by the sheer massive pursuit and enhanced attack force that would be pursuing Eri. Plus, the signs of the experimentation on Eri would probably push the principal of UA High over the edge, as it was mentioned the principal UA had some brutal experiments on him that was done with a one-off statement from Recovery Girl. I'm going to have to risk copyright infringement to show you this important data on Principal Nezu's past, which if the audio is gone, you know what happened.
Principal Nezu! He's actually an animal with a quirk that makes him smarter than humans! A truly unique being that you won't find anywhere else in the world!
In the past, humans conducted horrible experiments on Nezu, so in times like this, he gets his vengeance.
Plus would be told of the power of Eri by hearing it directly from Eri and see all those physical signs of experimentation. Also, since Deku was directly told this information about Nezu's past, Deku's original quirk would fully utilize this information, having those thoughts come to the front of Deku's mind to have him consciously aware of the best course of action, which would have forced Deku to seek out Nezu and then explain the situation to the principal Nezu in a way to as quick as possible set him into a rampage state to take on properly such an overwhelming approaching force of villains. So I wouldn't be surprised if UA High would be set to a war-type state, ignoring the normal rules that hold back the army of powerful students they have, with secret operations performing an emergency deployment of all available resources. So clearly, Deku's original quirk has cornered its prey. But unfortunately, this was a group effort, and Deku's allies did the worst moves they could have done. First, Lemillion didn't all act on extremely obvious signs. It is now time to make the rest with the confirmed abused state of the child Eri. Overhaul would be highly suspicious of them if they let them go, as well, so another good reason to not stop. Yet despite all this, with Deku's original quirk ready for combat, trying to instigate it, Lemillion had kept impeding the combat scenario with the authority he has over Deku, as Lemillion, though he tried to make himself look confident, must have been tired enough to not think properly during the situation, which has been reported before, with stating even when he fails a test, he keeps a smile up.
Mirio Togata, huh? And who is that?
He certainly has a lively presence. There's near constant laughter in the halls whenever he's around. And even if he fails a test, his smile never disappears. Doesn't it sound like he aligns with your philosophies?
Which has been stated to be a goal of the heroes to always smile to inspire hope in the people around them, even when they are barely holding on. This happening at this point in time is a suspicious coincidence for how much endurance Lemillion usually has, especially with the issue lining up with such a critical event causing such major issues. Then the next big mistake, when Eri saw the heroes about to be attacked by Overhaul, who has always killed his opponents before, easily, while Eri could see the heroes seem to be open to the idea of leaving. So Eri, to prevent them from dying to Overhaul, had forcefully jumped out of Deku's arms to run back to Overhaul, which Deku's original quirk wasn't expecting Eri to push away from Deku. Therefore, it didn't hold Eri back and then got crippled as a freezing weakness happened, unable to stop Eri from running to Overhaul as it tried to adjust the plan with the introduction of a new unscanned important variable, which it didn't have time to adjust the physical manipulation over Deku that had full control of Deku's body, at that point being ready for the quick actions needed for the planned for battle. While Lemillion incompetently did not make a move either due to he was tired. which allowed Overhaul to secure Eri. With Overhaul having Eri, there was no way the heroes could attack without endangering the child, as Overhaul could have torn Eri apart easily if they approached, then be the only one that could reassemble her.
If I put her back together immediately, I can revive her, even if she's not quite the way she was before.
Forcing them to let him go for Eri's sake if they engaged, let alone the normal danger of a person holding onto a child and how much damage they can inflict. Which Lemillion probably knew, and Deku's original scanning quirk could find this information from the scans, so it would hold back Deku. Therefore, regrettably, the heroes had to let them go. I don't blame Deku at all. Deku's original quirk could only do so much, and without the authority needed to act on its own, and the severe mismanagement, eventually you can expect a breakdown of scanning quirk to occur. Which it did this time. For the Night Eye Agency, they will pay dearly for what they did here. The Night Eye Agency members would soon become so distraught from this failure, with also learning all the details of the experimentation on Eri endangering the world. Which with such information, it will push them to go farther than they otherwise would have to rescue Eri, causing them to overextend over a highly dangerous battle to rescue Eri that will devastate the Night Eye Agency, having it continue in name only. With Night Eye dying and his protege Lemillion unable for at least a long time to use his powers. While Deku walks away from the broken internship with far less allies than he should have had. No training and a quirk infection which the incompetent higher-ups will fail to identify the infection caused, by Deku's original scanning quirk getting far too much information from Night Eye's future viewing power. If they had never met Eri before a rescue, they would have been far more careful, as they wouldn't have been so attached to the situation, able to navigate the battle carefully in a way that would have allowed them to avoid these dire consequences instead of in the main timeline where they overextended. Therefore, this event had doomed the Night Eye Agency and destroyed the internship that was supposed to train Deku properly for his future symbol of peace for all. Where instead of being a perfect internship that would have forced them to tell Deku of his original scanning quirk, due to the quirk combo between Deku and Night Eyes being observed, this left Deku infected and devastated with his hero prospects looking bleak, making it clear Deku should never have gone on this internship with how it ended, as what seemed to be a long list of coincidences led to the worst possible outcome. That seems to be all information stored here, so I'll end my video here. If you look at future information, the sheer amount of damage to everyone involved in the Night Eye Agency and the training in the next symbol of peace operation will be catastrophic. But there was a problem. In the previous video that covered a period of time very close to this, it also had an event that had all the operations in that area get devastated as well, which seemed coincidentally similar. Now normally in My Hero Academia, when you notice coincidences such as far too much bad luck occurred, then there should be a hidden story explaining what happened. But just using the hidden story rules I have gathered so far, it looks to be a natural end result of their decisions, which can't be with massive amount of behavioral symptoms strongly indicating a manipulative attack occurred by how too many operations' future failures were set into motion in such a short period of time. Plus, it was so close to the Quirk destabilization event that may have unleashed something powerful that could potentially have enough power to cause the otherwise impossible pull-off attack. And if something was released, it'd be expected to attack the operations most responsible for the Quirk destabilization event that basically seemed to have happened here. But with this video conclusion, this finishes the transition period to the secret containment arc of the My Hero Academia series, by these events giving us enough evidence to ask the correct question: what is manipulating the story? Which is how this entire series of mine started, with asking a single question on what is manipulating the story. But at a far earlier point, I was asking. And will bring forth answers that will rival what the initial question that set off the series did, completely rewriting the story of My Hero Academia a third time. Which these answers will allow us to see the true important story of this generation's symbol of peace, Deku, who will face far greater threats than all of the One-For-All wielders that came before him. This has been the Deer Runner, the Runner of Deer. Thanks for watching.